So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. I look forward to really empowering you in this area of breaking bad habits and how to then set up new habits for success. So in terms of those that haven't met me, I'm Anthony Harcher. My title is a Wellseers, so I guide you to your health goals. And let me get underway with some bit of background about me. So in terms of where I started as a chemical engineer in corporate and worked my way up in the corporate world, and then thought, this is not really fulfilling. I do like the challenges of solving client problems. However, I'm solving them in the area that's not really of interest to me. And so I thought, well, what is of interest to me? And the interest to me has always been health and looking after my health, and then supporting others with their health. So I decided to go back to school and complete another 2 more degrees. I completed a degree in health science, majoring in nutrition and dietetic medicine, and then I completed a Bachelor of Complementary Medicine. And furthermore, I've done some further training with the DeMartini Institute, and I'm trained as a trained facilitator in their methodology. So I'm also a family man. You can see here my wife, Adriana, in that little box there with the Chinese writing in the background, and my daughter, Sophia, and my son, Ollie, who are much older now. This is a pretty old photo, I must say. It's pre-COVID, put it that way. So now let's get into what are we going to cover today. So those that have just joined, I'm recording the session. So if you ask questions, and you can ask questions throughout the webinar, so please do. But just letting you know that your voice will be recorded. If you want to stay anonymous, then maybe put the questions in the chat and I will just read out the question and respond to the question. So in terms of how we're going to map your success to breaking bad habits, first of all, we've got to go through the why. And hence why I've asked everyone to have a bit of pen and paper, because I've got some questions to ask you. I really want to understand why it's important to you in terms of breaking that old habit or that bad habit, that one that's ingrained, entrenched in you. Because if we understand the why, then the how becomes a whole lot easier. And so we need to work on the why first before I introduce the how, in order to break that habit or to help you rewire that programming of yours. I'm going to share Dave's journey in terms of the habit, the addiction that he had. He had a real severe chronic addiction to cocaine. And so I'm going to share Dave's story and how he turned his life around, essentially, through this process that I'm going to share with you today. And I'm going to then talk about the brain, how it works, and how we can reprogram it. So it's really important to understand why the brain is behaving in such a way, and why you are sort of feeling that you're driven and compelled to want these desires that you just can't resist, right? So I'm going to share why that is the case, and then how can we rewire that programming. And then I'm going to obviously show you the next steps in terms of moving forward. So this is a little activity I'd love you to do. And so get your pen and paper out, or on your mobile phone, on your notebook, wherever it may be. I would love you to ask yourself these questions. So the first question to ask is, what is your habit costing you financially? I have a client at the moment who has a cocaine addiction, and his addiction is costing him $2,000 a week. That equates to 100,000 per annum. So you can see how this can quickly add up. I've also got a client who's got a alcohol addiction, and he drinks a bottle of wine a night. So, like even a cheap bottle of wine, $10, that equates to $3,000 a year. And he's been doing it for 30 years. And so then that comes up to $100,000 as well. So as you can see, that just with these 2 clients, their addiction is costing them significant amount of money, in excess of $100,000. So what is it costing you financially, having this addiction? And it could be you're a coffee addict, or it could be that you're a cake addict, or whatever it may be. Start to understand what it's costing you financially, and then look at also what impact is that having on your relationships with yourself, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with others. So, for example, with Dave, who I'm about to share his testimonial, he had relationship issues everywhere. The relationships were strained, and he was unhappy with his relationships, and the addiction was costing him his relationships that were really of high importance to him. They were of high value to him. He also had a not a good relationship with himself. He attempted suicide as part of this process of him really lost and trying to discover himself. And that's what the addiction was helping him sort of make him feel a bit better, the cocaine addiction. However, it got to the point that the cocaine addiction wasn't fulfilling enough. And so he tried to take his life. The next point is, how is it affecting you socially? When you go out, is it something that, like alcohol, for example, if you're drinking too much, it can change your persona and people don't want to be around you. Or it could be changing your intimate relationship. So your spouse doesn't like you drinking and they get upset every time you come home after drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. Or is it gambling? Again, that can have a real financial impact on you and your family. So how is it affecting you socially, in social circles, social dynamics? I want you to think about how it's impacting your career. So how is it impacting your ability to progress in your work, to function daily? And again, it can really have a prolonged impact over time with your ability to perform well and to perform consistently. Because, as you know, with addictions, you can go through lows and then obviously you have your highs, but it's a constant roller coaster up and down. It's never really a smooth sailing, so to speak. So how is it impacting your career? And then I want you to consider how is it stopping you fulfill your dreams? How is it stopping you living your life's purpose, your spiritual quest? And we're going to touch a bit more on this side of things. So we're going to explore that in the up and coming slides in terms of understanding your life's purpose and your dreams. Because this was one of the important aspects that turned Dave's life around, was understanding what I'm about to share with you and then connecting with that and then living that. That's what really turned his life around. It got him off the cocaine. It got him excelling in his career, and he's never looked back. And he's been clean for well over, it would be 18 months now. And now I'm actually helping his cousin, who also has a cocaine addiction. The second last point is, how is it holding you back mentally in terms of being at your mental best and pursuing, I guess, your education in the areas that you want to develop and the areas that you're interested in? How is it holding you back there? So it could be like a procrastination thing that you sort of like got this habit towards, that you sit and procrastinate, and you've got all these things that you're doing, but you just can't get started. And so that procrastination habit is costing you. It's holding you back from really going about pursuing something that's deeply meaningful to you. And the last point here is, how is it impacting your health and well-being? I've mentioned cocaine, alcohol. They have a massive impact on your health and well-being, not only in the short term, but in the long term. In the long term, it's probably a lot more serious, such as heart conditions, brain disease, and cancer can eventuate from these drug, alcohol addictions, smoking addictions, even a sweet tooth addiction. So a chronic sweet tooth addiction will lead to decay of your teeth, rotting your teeth. It will affect your arteries. It will affect your heart. It will affect your, so your ability to manage blood glucose. It will cause weight gain, and it could manifest into type 2 diabetes. And that will eventually impact your eye health. And so it can have quite a flow-on effect. So I just want you to write down how it's impacting you. You need to really understand the impacts of it to you. So here I'm going to share, this is a very short video, but this is Dave's story, and he shares this. So this is a story written by Dave about him and his turnaround with his addiction.
The first time I called Anthony, I was in a psychiatric hospital. This was the third time I was in the hospital in only a span of 2 years. I have suffered with depression most of my teenage to adult life. This led to developing a hard drug addiction to try get away from my problems, which of course only made things worse. I have been to therapy many times and have nothing against it, but for me it just wasn't working. I kept hearing the same thing and was being asked the same questions over again. I did not want sympathy or someone to keep telling me things will get better. I needed to change my life, otherwise I was not going to be able to stay in this world. Anthony's approach was different to anything I have ever experienced. His methods were strong. He made me realize that I can use my past and be thankful for what my experiences have taught me. He told me that my demons were not in fact bringing me down, but making me stronger for what was to come. Anthony was honest from the start and told me this was going to be a long, hard journey. But persistence was the key, and with his tools and advice, I begun my journey. It has been a year since I have been with Anthony, and I have never felt this good in my whole life. That is something I thought I would get to say. I was using drugs every day and constantly thinking about suicide. Now I smile and appreciate life and what it has given me. It is a big transition and was not easy one. But if you are willing to put in the work, Anthony can help you and will not leave your side no matter what. Whenever you need him, he will be there. I know it's tough out there, and I know it's even tougher to get help because you don't want to accept the fact that you need it. But getting help is the bravest thing anyone can do. To all the people reading this, please reach out to Anthony if you are struggling. He will change your life. The first time I called Anthony.
So that was Dave's story, and it was a long, hard journey for Dave, but he put in the work, and I'm sharing you the methodology that I worked with Dave with. So what I'm sharing to you today is the tools that I worked with Dave, and he implemented these methodologies and applied them, and he totally turned his life around. So you can do it too. I just want to give you that hope. So first of all, I want to let you know that what's happening in your brain. So why do we have these addictions? And it's really important to understand the evolution of our brain. So we've got these three brains. We've got this very reptilian brain, which is around the brainstem, the lowest part of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain. Then we have the mammalian part of the brain, which is where we essentially can automate things, or we can actually regulate things without us actually doing anything. So it happens automatically. And it's in this mammalian part of the brain where we have our habits, our addictions. And there we have this evolved part of the brain, which is the highest part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. So the mammalian brain is also known as the emotional center, the limbic center. It's where the amygdala is. You've probably heard of the amygdala. It's where the hippocampus resides. It's really that lower part of the brain. And then we have this prefrontal cortex, which is where I'm moving my hands around my head. It's pretty much this forehead, right? I have foresight with my prefrontal cortex. I can see my strategic vision. I can see how I can achieve things. And this is when we're in our prefrontal cortex, we have governance over our emotions. We are in control of our emotions. So we are driven from within. We're not externally driven. When we're in our mammalian part of the brain, which is our desire center, which is what I referred to as that limbic center, also it has the amygdala there. When we're in that desire center, what is happening there is we're run by the environment, just like animals respond to environmental cues. And when we're in this part of the brain, we're responding to environmental cues with a hardwired response. And this mammalian part of the brain is our survival center. So it's where we seek prey and it's where we avoid predator. With addictions, well, it could be addictions from either side. So it could be an addiction towards a desire, so something you really want. In Dave's case, it was drugs. Some people it's alcohol, some people it's sex, some people it's gambling, some people it's sugar. Whatever your desire is, what's happening is that you're stuck in this mammalian part of the brain, this survival center. Or it could be the other side. You're avoiding things. You're running away from problems. You're running away from people. You're running away from challenges. And that's the response we have hardwired in us to get us away from predator. And so what happens in this survival center is that it drives adrenaline. It really drives the adrenaline to help us get towards our prey or to get away from a threat or a predator. And so it really drives this sympathetic nervous system, we call it, and it's that fight, flight, or freeze. So Dave was very much stuck in this fight, or freeze response. So if someone said something to him in the street that he didn't like, he would straight away go into a fight response. And he would often get into fights and arguments because he was just stuck in this mammalian part of the brain and he was just responsive to anything outside. And essentially the outside world was running him. And when it got too overwhelming, he'd go to the drugs. And so what I've helped Dave do and what I'm helping you do in this webinar, which I hope to do in the next half an hour, may take a little longer, is to really help you get out of that survival center and into the prefrontal cortex. Because it's in the prefrontal cortex, we can see things objectively, not subjectively. We're no longer a victim. We see things as they are. We don't have fantasies in terms of how we wish they would be. And we think that the world is terrible and I'm a victim and there's bad people and all this sort of stuff. And we're judgmental. So in the survival center, we're very judgmental. And this is why we, quickly judge someone on first impressions. That's a survival instinct. First of all, we're assessing that person as to whether they're a threat to me. And this is why we have this judgment. But what can happen is if we're stuck in this survival type of thinking, then we're constantly judging people. And when we judge people, that will invoke an emotional response in us. And that emotional response in us will have a hardwiring motor response. And that motor response could be that you avoid that person. It could be that you argue with that person. It could be that you fight with that person, or you might just freeze. So what we're going to do in the up and coming slides is work through getting out of the animal survival center and getting you into your prefrontal cortex. Because as I said, in that prefrontal cortex, it's where we see the world as it is. It's where we can have absolute gratitude, real gratitude. We can be thankful for what's happened to us and for everything around us. It's where we have true love, right? True love, because we can see both sides of the person and we love the person for who they are. When we're in the animal center, we judge the person. We like one side, but we don't like the other side of the person. We have this admiration or infatuation on one side, but then we resent the other side. It's not true love. That's conditional love. True love resides in the prefrontal cortex where we can see the person objectively and we can love them for who they are. We can love what's happened to us because we can see how it's served us and how it's benefited us, as opposed to judging it and saying it was just a negative experience. It was just a bad experience. That's in our subjective view of the world. When we step outside of that subjective view of the world and get objective, we see both sides. We're fully conscious. This is where we're fully mindful. When we're in our animal brain, we are mindless, mindless. And so what I'm wanting to walk you through today is how to elevate your thinking into that prefrontal cortex so that you have governance over your emotions and you're in control. Your addiction is not controlling you. You are the person in the driver's seat, not the outside world, not the person that might make you upset, or that person will no longer run you when you actually step into this prefrontal cortex, because you'll see them for who they are and you'll respect them for who they are. And so this webinar is not only helping you break the addiction, it's actually helping you become a better human. So let's get underway with the tools. And please ask questions if you have any questions. But as I said, you will be recorded. Otherwise, put them in the chat. So I'm happy to check the chat and answer your questions without reading out who's asking the question. So what can we do about it? So it really starts with this level of self-awareness. So the tip of the iceberg is understanding that there's something running you, that you've been triggered. You've been triggered into this hard-wired motor response. So there's sensory input. It then evokes this hardwired motor response where you're driven towards something, whether it be alcohol, gambling, whatever it may be. It just triggers that hardwired reaction. And you're not in the driver's seat, or it could be that chocolate cake or that box of cookies. You just feel that you're drawn to it like a magnet, right? That you just out of control in essence. So what I want you to do is think about what it is. What triggers you to initiate the response to go to the cookie jar, or what triggers the initiation to the response to want to take drugs or needing alcohol. What are some of the triggers? I want you to start thinking about the time. So maybe reflect on the last couple of times that you actually went to the ice cream, or you went to the cookie jar, or you went to the drug, or you went to the alcohol, or you started gambling. What preceded that? So just look back as to when was the last time you did it, and what was the triggering? What preceded that? So I just want you to start this awareness process of what's triggering you to start this cascade of a reaction. And then it's sort of then looking under the tip of the iceberg. So again, it could be when someone responds to you in a certain way that it just triggers a feeling. But what you want to ask yourself is, why am I triggered by that? What's happened in the past that I keep getting triggered by this same response? But, if someone says this to me or someone does this to me, I respond in this way. Go back in time to really find out the underlying causation. And it might take a little while to come up with this, but what I'm wanting to do here is initiate that thinking, to get the thinking, to start thinking beyond the tip of the iceberg and really getting down to what's driving the desire. After this, searching this sort of self-awareness and understanding the triggers, and then why am I triggered by that? Why is it such an issue? Why do I feel this way based on this response, this stimulus? Keep asking yourself why. I just want to allow you some time to think and reflect. And then obviously after this webinar, you can continue to work on this. For those that have done the first part of this exercise, the second part of the exercise is identifying the benefits you are getting from that behavior or the benefits you get. So, what benefits is going to that cake bringing you? What are the benefits of taking drugs to you? What are the benefits you're gaining from it? Because that's why you're doing it, right? Is there's benefits. It's providing some benefit that is giving you something. So I want you to start thinking about the benefits you get from your behavior, from that chocolate cake, that box of cookies, the gambling, the bottle of alcohol or excessive drinking, excessive smoking, drug taking, whatever it might be. What are the benefits to you in doing that? I want you to start listing them down. And I want you to start looking at the benefits to you in the areas of life that are important to you. So if it's relationships, how does it benefit you in relationships? Does it make you calmer? Does it make you a nice, I don't know, if it does it just does it what does it do to you that helps you with relationships? What does it do to you that helps you mentally? You know, is it a stimulant? Does it motivate you? Does it just starts thinking about what it's doing for you? Because this is part of the understanding. So we need to define the issue and what triggers it and what we get out of doing it. And then we can start looking at how do we rewire this? How do we start breaking down these patterns of behavior? So here's a step-by-step process that will start to rewire the nervous system. Okay. And I started with it on the previous slide, and that's around defining the benefits to you. So I'm going to walk you through some examples so you understand how to work this process through. But this is a high level understanding of the process that I'm about to walk you through. And so why I'm asking you the benefits of the bad habit is to bring to your conscious awareness why you are doing it. There's a benefit to doing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Every action that you do, you've made this assessment that there's more advantages than disadvantages, hence why you take the action. And so we need to understand all those advantages or benefits that you get from the action to then really bring that to your conscious awareness so that then we can start rewiring these pathways. Otherwise, if we don't do this, then we're not actually getting to that strong wiring that's currently there. And because what we're looking to do is look for alternate ways to help you get that benefit. And that will rewire a new pathway. And that will eventually, over time, dissolve the old pathway. And what you'll have is this new pathway where you get the benefit that you're seeking, but in a way that's more serving to you. So we're going to, discover other alternate ways of which you can get the benefit of what that bad habit is bringing you. Okay, what are the alternatives to getting that benefit? And what we do is we start listing them out, and we start listing the benefits of the alternate way of doing it. So we're starting to build up the pros or the advantages of doing the new way of getting the benefit of what the old way was giving you. And then what we do to start dissolving the old habit is we look at the disadvantages of the old habit and we start dissolving that. We start bringing that down. We start listing and really coming up with big lists, like I'm talking around like 30 items or 30 to 50 items. So we're really, really dissolving it. We're just writing down all the downsides of that behavior. And we're finding, I guess, second and third tier downsides to that one downside. And so we're really starting to find this strong connection to, oh, that old habit really doesn't serve me well. And then what you're doing is stacking up the new alternate way of getting that fulfillment, and then you're listing all the upsides of the new way. And so what this does is essentially dissolve the old pathway and then start creating this strong wiring towards this alternate behavior that's giving you the benefit of what the old behavior was giving you, but it's in a greater sense, it's serving you more wholly. And what I'm going to do now is help you define what is important to you. Because when we understand what's truly important to us, then we can start to see through how the old habit is not serving us in the areas that we value most. And then we're looking for alternate pathways that better serve what we value most. Because what we value most is our spiritual quest. It's our spiritual mission. It's our purpose in living out what's most important to us. So by me discovering that health was a high value and then honoring that by then finding a career in health, I'm now on a spiritual quest. I'm now on a pathway where I'm living out my purpose. And so this is what I helped Dave do, was really get him clear as to what's most important to him. Because this wasn't clear to Dave in the beginning, because he was injecting other people's values and thinking that's what he needed to live up to. He was injecting his parents' values, his friends' values, his brother's values, and he was totally confused and lost to who he was because he was living by everyone else's importance or value list, as opposed to living by what's truly most important to Dave. Once we discovered this, then Dave started taking action every day to live by what's most important to him. And he feels totally fulfilled now. He doesn't need anything else. He has no need or desire for cocaine because he knows what's important to him and he feels totally fulfilled. The reason why he felt a void was that he was taking on other people's values. He was injecting it, allowing it to be injected in him. And he was feeling that there was something missing because he felt he was not enough, because he could see them succeeding in what was important to them. But when he tried to copy them, he was always becoming second fiddle. He was always second best. He was never going to be like them because he's not them and you aren't anyone else. The only thing you can be is the best version of you. So what I want you to do in this exercise is write down the answers to these questions. And so what I want you to think about what energizes you. So what do you do where you feel that you have unlimited energy? You just have boundless energy. So for me, I have boundless energies when I'm helping others in their health. I have boundless energies when I'm doing healthy things for myself. And I have boundless energies when I'm with my family and present with my family. So they're the three areas that I work on every day. And that's what brings me the most energy. I don't do anything else outside of that. I pretty much do those three things consistently every day. And that's very fulfilling to me. So what are the three things that energize you? What brings you energy? Where you just feel that you're no longer lethargic, you no longer feel lazy, you're no longer demotivated, you just inspired. So what is it that you do that brings you energy? Then I want you to write down what is it that you do that brings you complete presence. You're totally focused. You have attention surplus. You're not distracted. So what are the things that you do where you're not distracted? I want you to list three things that you're doing where you're not distracted. And you'll find overlap, obviously. That's what we're looking for, the things that keep popping up. So we're looking for what's common across all these questions. But I want you to write 3 answers for each of them so that then we can find what's most common. What are the top 3? So for Dave, we discovered that his family was in his top 3. His friends are in his top 3. And his health is in his top 3. So what we then did was set up his life so that he was living every day by his top 3 values. And he was saying no to everything else. So this is how you define your boundaries, because this defines who you are. This absolutely defines who you are and what you bring to the world. So what are the things that you love talking about? Where are you an extrovert? So what are the, when the conversation comes to this topic, people can't shut you up. You become an extrovert. You just can't stop talking about it. As you can see, when someone turns the topic to health, I won't shut up, okay? But when the topic turns to cars, I'll become an introverted. I'll totally shut up and I'll become distracted and I'll want to get out of that conversation. So obviously, health is a much higher value than cars to me. What do you love to learn about? So what are the podcasts you're listening to? What are the YouTubes you're watching? What are the TikTok reels that are interesting to you? What do you love learning about? What are you constantly learning about? Are you learning how to be the best parent, how to be the best spouse? Are you learning about how to live the longest and healthiest life? Are you learning about music? Are you learning about cars? What are you constantly learning about? That you're constantly evolving your education. That's really important to you. So one of the things Dave loved learning about was writing. He was a great writer. He was an excellent writer. And so what we got him to do was to write more and to start writing his story and to start showcasing his short plays. He's a film writer. He's a script writer. He loves writing. So what I got him to do was to write more and then look at ways in which we could then take his writing and start showcasing that to the world. And how does he start to monetize his writing expertise? So where is it that you're setting long-term goals? And these long-term goals are ones that you can see evidence that you're making progress towards. So I'm constantly setting health goals and I can see my health improving all the time through my Apple Watch and my Oura Ring. So where are you setting long-term goals that you see evidence that it's coming true, that it's showing progress? Because if you're setting it long-term goals, but there's no evidence actually showing that it's manifesting in any way, then that's just a fantasy. It's someone else's goal that you think would be great, but it's not truly meaningful to you. What are the things that you're constantly putting aside time for? So where do you find time? For me, I always find time to exercise. Always. I never miss a day. Never miss a day. I always find time for it because exercise is important to me. So what are you constantly finding the time for? It could be turning up to your kids' plays or your kids' sporting events or your Mother's Day celebrations, or it could be whatever. If you're always turning up to your kids' birthdays or whatever they are, then obviously your children are very important to you. You're constantly devoting time to them. So your children are very important to you. What's constantly filling the space around you? What's constantly around you? For me, it's computers, recording equipment, it's my phone. But why is that filling space around me? Because it's the way in which I share what's important to me to the world. It's the way in which I help others. And so this is inspiring to me. So this is constantly around me. I'm constantly filming. I'm constantly talking. I'm constantly researching, constantly learning in the area of health. So What are you constantly is in your space? Is it your children? Your children could be always around you. Could be your dog. Could be your cat. What's constantly with you all the time? And why is that with you? That's the question you want to ask about why is that possession with you? Like for women, women will often carry a purse, but why is the purse always with them? Because it carries their lipstick and their eyelash stuff and all their stuff to make them look beautiful. So their physical appearance is important to them. That's why they're carrying the handbag. Um, it might not be for all women, but I'm just giving an example. Where are you most disciplined? So what is it that you do where you're most disciplined? So David was most disciplined with his health, his training. He was most disciplined with his commitments to his family, and he was very disciplined around his writing. Where are you most organized? So where you're most organized, like where is your area or space or that's completely ordered? It could be with your school calendar for your children. You have all the events coming up. You got complete order around that. So wherever you're really organized, list 3 areas where you're very organized. So I'm very organized around my work and not missing my consultations with my clients and not missing these masterclasses. But I wasn't that organized today because Zoom made me a bit disorganized, but I need to fix that. So where are you most organized? And then lastly, what do you constantly think about? What is that internal vision that's constantly in your mind that you can see coming to fruition? So mine is speaking in front of mass audiences and empowering them with health and wellness knowledge. I constantly envisage that. And what I see manifesting is that I'm getting more and more speaking gigs and they're getting bigger and bigger. So I can see my vision coming true. It's what I constantly internalize, but it's also manifesting. Same with my health. I can constantly see progress in my health. And I envisage a healthy old man. Okay. So what is it you have this internal vision of that you can see that's coming true today, that's starting to manifest? So what I want you to do with all the things that you've listed, what kept popping up? What is common amongst all the things you've listed? I want you to take out the top 3 items of all the things that you've listed down. And those top 3 items are your highest values at this present point in time. It may change in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But if you keep checking in with these questions that I've asked you here, then you can articulate your values at that point in time. So my values haven't really changed over the last 5 years. They've been very consistent. But over the last 10 years, yes, they have. Over the last 20 years, absolutely. Over the last 30 years, absolutely. So your values will change. So you need to keep checking in. But what I do is whatever's top 3 in my list, that's what I fill my day with. And if you fill your day with what's most important to you, you won't feel empty. There'll be no void. There'll be no desire. There'll be nothing to run from. Because the problems I encounter are the problems that are meaningful to me, and I'm inspired to overcome the problems. So the problems that we encounter that don't inspire us, we run away from. So what I encounter is problems in the areas that I value most because that's where I'm spending all my time. And then I'm inspired to overcome those problems, and they don't get me down. I'm inspired to beat those challenges or to master those challenges. So those top 3 items you've listed, I want you to start making sure every day is filled with those top 3 items. Now, building new habits. Okay. We're on the hour. I'm going to continue to go because I'm recording this session. So if you need to go for another function or another commitment, then please go to that other function commitment. I'll keep going because it's being recorded. You can come back to the recording. So I certainly don't take any offense if you need to go on the hour. So let me continue. We've probably got another 15 minutes. So let's start creating these new habits. How do we create the new habits? We've got to understand the benefits of the old habits, what it's bringing you. So this is what I touched on before. I like comments. I like Gunner's comments about he writes habits with a Z. It's very hilarious because it's your last name. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I like a bit of humor. So, for example, in terms of building new habits, so let's take the guy that I mentioned that I shared at the start that I'm working with that's drinking a bottle of wine a night, and he's been doing that for 30 years. So, what benefits does he get from drinking the bottle of wine? Well, it makes him relax in the evening. Okay, so that's one of the benefits that's drawing him to having a drink of wine. It tastes good. He likes the taste of alcohol. And there's a number, not just these two, but there's a whole list of these things. But just in light of time, I'm just going to share a couple of examples. So, in terms of a new habit I got him to think about was because he has a value on his health. That's why he's coming to see me. The alcohol's starting to really deteriorate his health, and he's losing relationships, and relationships are in value to him. So what I asked him about was, how about instead of using the alcohol to relax him, another way of relaxing is going outside, getting outside and going for a walk. So when he's outside and going for a walk, he's fulfilling one of his values, which is health. And then I said, how about you do it with a friend and you can do a walk and talk? Okay. So that way he's filling two of his highest values that are really meaningful to him. And it's giving him one of the benefits that he's getting from the alcohol. So we started to do this new habit. I got him to talk to a friend, to set up time to meet with a friend and go for a walk on a regular basis. And so as I've got listed here, the benefits of the new habit is that he's getting exercise and health is a value to him. The other one is his finances have severely deteriorated over these 30 years, severely. As I said, the alcohol itself has costed him 100,000, but not only that, it's costed him relationships. He's been divorced. So that has had a much bigger impact. So it's probably cost him in order of $500,000 or more, just the whole habit around drinking consistently. And so the other one is the benefits of walking outside. If he doesn't want to do it with his friend's not available, what he can do is listen to podcasts so he can start doing professional development in the area that he values most. So we started to look at, he loves history, for example, and politics. So we started to look up podcasts that were really great around history and politics. And yeah, so then now what he can do, if his friend's not available, then he goes and listens to his podcast on, his history, his politics. The other benefit he gets is sunshine. So sunshine initiates dopamine production. So one of the things that we're drawn to in terms of our addictions is whatever we're getting from, whatever the addiction's doing for us, what it does in some ways is stimulate some dopamine. For example, cocaine stimulates huge amounts of dopamine. Sugar stimulates dopamine. And so one of the benefits of him stepping outside is he's getting naturally stimulated dopamine without any cost. It doesn't come at any cost to him. So look at all the benefits he's getting from this new behavior that's fulfilling what's most important to him. So these are the tables I want you to create for your habit that you want to break. So you've probably read the next line here is, he likes, it tastes good. He likes a drink in the evening because it tastes good. And so there's a whole lot of non-alcoholic drinks out there that still taste good. They're getting very much like the actual alcoholic drink taste. And so what are the benefits of him having this non-alcoholic but still getting the taste? He's getting a better night's sleep, because what the alcohol does, yes, it might help you fall asleep, but it doesn't give you deep restorative sleep. So you wake up and you're tired. So what he's now getting is more restorative sleep. And he eats less sweets the next day. So what happens is when we're tired and lethargic, we generally go for things that will make us feel better, that will give us energy. And they're typically junk food, sweets, and things like that. So he's helping his health also by having a better night's sleep, by not consuming excessive calories and really empty calories, calories that are not providing any nutritional value, that are in fact rotting his teeth, decaying his arteries, and driving type 2 diabetes. So this is then going through what does the old habit and how it's not serving him and what's most important to him. So the old habit is drinking alcohol. So the disadvantages of alcohol. So what I asked him to do, we came up with well over 30, well over a list of 30 things. So what you want to do is keep writing until and then even once you think you're exhausted, have a break and come back to it. You'll find more when you have a break. So keep coming back to it and just write this exhaustive list of how the old habit is not serving you in the things that are most important to you. So for him, poor sleep, he valued health, right? What was poor sleep doing? Making him moody the next day. It was affecting his relationships. He was increasing calorie consumption, putting on weight, and that was fueling his type 2 diabetes. He wants improved relationships because the alcohol has costed him relationships. So when he's had a better night's sleep, he's not moody, he's not run by his emotions. He can have better interactions. The other one is the excessive calories that you consume the next day after a bad night's sleep. And the excessive calories in the alcohol, right? So it's a double whammy. So alcohol has huge amounts of calories. It's got nearly the amount of calories per gram as what fat does. So people say, oh yeah, fat's full of calories. Well, so is alcohol, because alcohol is nearly the equivalent to fat. So think this guy's drinking fat every night, just drinking loads of fat every night. And so it was causing huge amounts of weight gain and this deterioration, severe deterioration in health, to the point where he's struggling to walk now because of the type 2 diabetes. It's really taking over him. It's destroying his life. Hangover. So drinking alcohol, he's got the hangover the next day. He doesn't feel like doing exercise, but he loves health. He wants to, but he's too tired all day. He doesn't do much. He's not motivated. So he's not doing the things that are most fulfilling to him because he hasn't got the energy. So we listed a whole lot under this, the impacts of having a hangover. Expensive. I've shared how much it was costing. It's costed him well over $500,000 through divorces and also the drinking habit itself. So what could that money have gone towards? Well, there's a lot I could put, or he can put $500,000 towards. So that is the process that I took David through, and that's why he's so successful today. Here's a little bit of bonus material. So I spoke about how dopamine is very associated with addictions, right? And these bad habits. Dopamine's very much behind it. So low dopamine is behind it. So what depletes your dopamine? Non-native electromagnetic frequencies. So what are they? They're your phones, they're your computer screens, they're your television screens, they're the Wi-Fi around you. These are all non-native EMFs. And these are depleting and interfering with our dopamine production. LED screens, the blue light coming from LED screens, the downlights that are in our rooms, they deplete dopamine. So you can see how spending more time indoors is making you feel like more sugar or more snacks or more junk food, because your dopamine's just plummeting from being indoors all the time. So if you're feeling down because you've been indoors in front of a screen for long periods of time, step outside. Great tip. Consuming low protein foods. So dopamine, the backbone of dopamine is an amino acid, right? The backbone is tyrosine. We need tyrosine in our diet. It's an essential amino acid. And so what I find is vegans have very much a low protein diet, a high fiber diet, but it's generally low in protein and it's low in the essential amino acids. And so if you're a vegetarian or vegan, then just be mindful of protein could be causing this low dopamine, which then drives you towards your addiction or your snacks. Great question, Jess. So the question is, how about caffeine? What does caffeine do to our dopamine? Really good question. So actually, caffeine helps the dopamine, or helps the efficiency of dopamine production. So this is why people can't start the morning without their coffee, because what dopamine does is drive motivation. And if you're thinking, oh, I should just drink more coffee, well, what happens is that then the caffeine impacts your sleep, and then that has, a big impact on our emotions and everything else, the flow-on effect, the ripple effect from poor sleep. Poor sleep leads to, or chronic poor sleep leads to the manifestation of all disease. So what we don't want to do is consume excessive amount of caffeine, but a moderate amount, a small amount of caffeine is good, okay? Because it helps the efficiency of dopamine production. The other way in which you can stimulate dopamine production is getting out and getting morning sunshine. So I always encourage my clients to find a morning routine where they step outside and they can either see the sun rising or at least get some rays from the sun in the morning, because that will initiate dopamine production. So great question around caffeine. So don't think, oh yeah, I've got to consume loads of caffeine in order to keep my dopamine efficiently being produced. It will have a negative effect over the course of the day, right? So yes, a small amount, a moderate amount is good. So again, it depends on the person. Definitely one coffee is good. Two coffees can be okay. But once you start getting into 3 or plus coffees a day, that's when you're really going to start to impact your sleep and your nervous system. Yeah, okay. So Eva shared that yeah, she addiction to coffee. But I'm helping you find new things to get addicted to. So Jess is drinking my first coffee right now, having my beans whey for the second coffee. Fantastic. Well done, Jess. So yes, coffee's okay. And it certainly supports the efficiency of dopamine production. But what I suggest is you really need that backbone of, see, we can't store protein. So we need to be constantly consuming protein in order to make dopamine. So make sure that you have, if you're vegan or vegetarian, make sure you get nutritional advice as to how you can get all the essential amino acids, because it's not easy, particularly if you're vegan. I see a lot of sick vegans, vegetarians, and a lot of it's driven from low protein, low iron. Recreational drugs and pharmaceutical drugs will deplete natural production of neurotransmitters and hormones. So ideally, you want to be weaning off your drugs by finding other ways of getting what the drug's giving you. So what are the benefits you're getting from the drug, and go through this exercise and find alternate ways. I'm clinically qualified to work out how else you can get the benefits of the drug, what else you can do. And then we start doing those behaviors, and eventually we can reduce the dependency on the drug and to a point where you no longer need it. So because at the end of the day, it has a big bearing. So even cocaine will over time significantly have an impact on the amount of dopamine that you need to feel okay. And so it's constantly changing that level because of it. And this is why you need more and more of the drug over time. So this is why or the client that I'm currently having, his cocaine addiction started with a couple of $100 a weekend, but it got to 2,000 because he needed more of the drug in order to get the same result. And so this is what happens with drugs. Over time, you'll need to increase the dosage, become more expensive, and the side effects will start to really have significant impacts on your life. So in terms of what I'm offering, I certainly are offering you a special offer for attending this masterclass. So obviously I've given you the tools. So I've given away the secret sauce. But I think some people can go away and run with that and it works. Other people really need the coaching element. So what I'm offering is a 25% off my one-on-one coaching. And if you're interested in doing some coaching with me, that's what I did with David. Please put your name and number into the chat and I will contact you and we can discuss options and you can take up the 25% offer. It's limited, so I'm allowing, so the time period at which this discount is valid is for a week. And I offer group coaching. So if people who can't afford the one-on-one coaching that still want support, then I have a group coaching program, which is the Holistic Mind Mastery Program. So what I will do is I'll put the links to this so you can check it out. I've already discounted this. This is going up to $1,500 on the 1st of July. So it is currently at its lowest point it will ever be. It is going up significantly because of the demand. So if you certainly get in before the 1st of July, if you want to get it at today's price, which is a cost of less than 2 coffees a day for the program. So more details I'll include in the chat. Also, I have another way in which this is super affordable. So if you can't afford $10 a day, I have this coaching program which comes at just a small amount of $1 a day. So I can help people at all levels, no matter where you're financially at. So if you want more information about this $1 a day program, you can scan the barcode here and it will take you and give you more information about my group coaching that is really affordable. So that's it. And now it's open for questions. I thank you for your patience at the start and allowing me to finish the webinar. I actually would have finished this in the hour time zone allocated. As you know, I didn't start until 1/4 past the hour. So I'm just going to get rid of this screen and I'm going to put in those links for you. I'll stop the recording actually. So you can ask questions.